Now, migrants who delay rescues until they reach British waters could face up to 5 years in jail. This is a new border security bill that will make it illegal to supply boat parts or life jackets suspected of being used by people smuggling gangs. Meanwhile, new figures reveal that taxpayers are funding new clothes and shoes for illegal channel migrants at a cost of £3,000 a day. That's like £4 million over the last 3 years, by the way. We have crunched the numbers. Let's speak with Tony Smith, former Director General of the Border Force, who knows his way around this story a lot, always helps us out with these kind of issues. Afternoon to you, Tony. I wasn't even aware that there was a thing here that apparently happens. So some people on those boats mid-rescue refuse to be rescued. Is that broadly what's happened? Now, if they refuse to be rescued because they want to reach British waters, they could get 5 years in jail for scuppering the rescue, broadly speaking.
Yeah, hi Ian. Good to speak again. So, I mean, what you really want is this law to be passed in France, and for the French.
Yes, that was my first thought.
It's not. This is fine. This is only enforceable in the UK, right? And all this sort of mischief is happening in France, as we know. Well, we've spoken about it many times. That the French are the ones that are allowing populated dinghies to float off. They don't intervene. I've heard terrible stories, Ian, about, even corpses being taken off some of those boats and the boat being allowed to go. That is clearly a crime scene. It should be sealed off. Everybody on that boat should be taken straight back to Calais and interviewed in the police station, but they're not. So a lot of the mischief has been correctly identified in this legislation, but my fear is that most of the mischief is being conducted on French waters in Calais or further away from the UK. And no matter what we do with UK law enforcement, there's only so much we can do when, we're talking about extraterritorial mischief like this.
I was trying to work out how this might play out. So are we talking, I'm assuming, Tony, because detail has only just come out, so you'd have a boat leaving France and the French border force would go, oh, look, there is a boat leaving France. We'll try and intervene. And they shout across to a fella on the boat, come this way because we need to stop your boat. And the fella on the boat says, no, we're going to the UK. And off you go. And then the British government say to the French border police, can we have the CCTV footage that you've got of that person refusing to stop? And when they get to our side, we will then prosecute them. I mean, it's as I'm saying it out loud, it sounds ridiculous, but that, I'm assuming, could be the only thing this could refer to.
Yeah, that's right. That's right, actually. And I've seen a couple of cases prosecuted here for mischief in France. I mean, I remember a few people getting battered on the beach there by people who we did identify come across in a boat. The criminality took place in France, but we were able to prosecute through the UK court. So I think that is exactly how they foresee it working. But the problem, as you know as well as I do, is that the French need to be able to stop the boats on the water. They have never, in the last 6 or 7 years, been prepared to do that because they say that endangers lives. And so that policy, unless that policy changes and they say, well, all right, we will now, whether they like it or not, we'll start rescuing them in French waters, this isn't really going to work. And I don't see it as a deterrent, Ian. That's the real point. Is it going to stop people wanting to come across here? I don't think it will, really, because the pull factors are still there. So this is the third piece of legislation we've had in 4 years on this now, and we've yet, I think, to be able to find a solution which actually stops the boats. There are all measures that all successive governments have brought in that are designed to help law enforcement, but it's not really so much as a criminal justice problem. This is a problem of being able to deter people from making that journey in the first place. And the only way you're going to do that is to ensure that when they do get to British territorial waters, they aren't allowed to stay in the UK. And for the most part, they still are being allowed to stay in the UK. And that is a very simple message that's picked up by an unending pool of migrants in the EU who belong. Is actually you'd still need to pay this money because it's still worth it, because you will get to stay in the UK. And I don't think this legislation is going to fix that, I'm afraid.
Yeah. I'm also I'm constantly confused, Tony. I don't, and you maybe have seen different evidence for this, but I know the French coastline is lengthy. It's kind of, but one would assume these departures from French soil happen within a certain kind of part of the coast, even if it's quite big. I don't think I've ever read a story where the French police suddenly descended on a beach where this was the people were about to leave on a boat, and the French say no, we've tried, we've scuppered a third of these crossings, and so maybe it has happened, but I've never seen images of that. You might think someone somewhere, the woman that's got a tea room over there overlooking the beach, or someone walking their dog would have gone, hang on a sec, there's 400 people on a beach here, they look as if they're about to leg it, I'll ring the French police. I've never heard these stories.
Well, we have given them quite a lot of help, Ian, as you know, including equipment, surveillance equipment. We've offered assets, Border Force assets, to go and help them with this particular problem of identifying where this mischief is taking place. But it is a little bit like whack-a-mole along that beach there. There's the vast stretches of that they're not covering to be able to intervene and stop the smuggling gangs operating there. But I mean, for me, it's always been the case, even before the boats, Ian, that when the French do actually catch somebody, they just let them go again. They don't do anything with them.
Yeah.
So you assume some of these people are unlawfully in France or unlawfully in the EU. They're not actually arrested and put into the French enforcement system and deported back whence they came on the asylum system. They're just basically let go. And, next day or next day after that, they're going to have another go. And quite often we see repeat people, who say, well, I didn't make it this time, didn't make it that time, weather was too rough or didn't have the money, but they will continue to flock to northern France and continue to try to come here for so long as we allow them to stay once they get here, and that is the nub of the problem.
And there was another element to this as well I saw today. Endangering lives at sea is to be a new criminal offence, carrying a jail term of up to 5 years as part of a plan. Border officials will also get powers to seize migrants' phones in the search for intelligence about who helped them cross the channel. I would have thought you could already do that.
Yeah, you can actually. We did have powers under the Illegal Migration Act, to seize phones, Ian, and that was already happening. I think a lot of this stuff has been overlain by additional powers of pre-arrest, but everybody who comes on a small boat is actually arrested by the force and taken into Manston, as you know. So actually, a lot of this is already happening now. I don't want to, diss this new legislation entirely. It's always helpful for enforcement to get more powers and more authorities. But for me, the bigger problem is that a lot of these crimes, the mischief that we're trying to stop, is not happening in UK waters. It is happening in French waters and beyond that. Are we saying we're going to extradite people from France or Europe to bring them over here to put them before a British court? Are we going to get the evidence to do that in all of these cases? I don't think so. I think, it's going to help a bit with the law enforcement getting additional powers, but will it? It doesn't give you that deterrent that we're all looking for, actually. And that deterrent has to be removals.
100%. And you can tinker around the edges and do all sorts of things, but unless you get serious about it, we're going to be back here every single week, and you and I will be talking to another 20 years, Tony. But listen, it's always good to get your take on these things. Tony Smith, he knows this story well. He's the former Director General of the Border Force. Thank you to him.